Time to talk baseboard. Now, you may have a question. How am I going to install my baseboard and all of that kind of stuff? And that's what this video is about. Now this baseboard is about 5 inches tall. I kind of like that, having a taller base than the standard, maybe 2.5, 3 inch tall. Now on the inside corners, a lot of people say, hey, you should cope the inside corners. Well, if you have a whole house to do, you may have 100 to 150 inside corners to cope. And what they did here, they just cut these at 45-degree angles. This is a 45-degree cut right here and right here. They pushed them together and they caulked that. And you know, that's how I do all of my corners. Yeah, sometimes people say this wall here may not be 100% perfectly square to this wall. Well, if it's slightly off, it's not going to be very far off. What you could do is when you cut your base, you could have two little pieces of base and cut a 45 on there and push them up into the corners. And if one is particularly very far off, you can tell what it is, and then you can make an adjustment so when you cut the full length base, you can cut it slightly off. But once you caulk it, it should be fine, especially on painted base such as this. Now see here, let's talk about this corner. Lots of times now, this house here is about 12 years old, and nowadays they're starting to put bullnose corners on here. Doesn't that look nice on the wall here? That's called a bullnose corner. But then the question is, how do you do your base around there? Now what they did here is they ran the baseboard up here on both sides, and then they cut a little piece. Every single outside corner has a little piece like this cut that starts from where it just starts curving from here to there. This piece is just a straight piece. And at this angle here, if you got a 90-degree corner like that, you've got to cut your base at 22.5 degrees here and here. That makes a 45. 22.5 and 22.5 is a 45, and then 22.5 and 22.5 is a 45 right there. So every little piece on the bullnose corners, they had to measure that and put a little piece like that, and then it goes doink, doink, doink like that. See, this is that's still these joints are 22.5, and this over here is a 45 and a 45 because that's a 90-degree corner. See, and that's kind of how most people do that. Now sometimes you can get really slick. What I've done before is I took base here, and they actually have little contoured pieces that curve around and have this nicely curved right there. You have to buy individual pieces like that, and it doesn't fit for every single type of tall base. Like this one here has nice little trim right there. Well, you have to go to the store, and you might have to order those, or you go to a door company, let's say, and they'll tell you which ones are in stock on these corners as to which baseboard with the OG trim up here, because not all of them they can get those corners to, or they might have to special order them. And on those pieces, you put it up there, glue it in place, and then it's just square here and square there. And then the baseboard, you cut it square and it pushes right up tight to it here and over here. And then you have to do some shaving and contouring for whatever doesn't fit, you know, like with a Dremel set and a little palm sander and all that. But that really looks nice too. But, you know, they didn't do that here. Now, here's another thing. This is on a tile floor. And you might be wondering, what's this down here? Why did they have to do that? That doesn't look very nice. Well, you know, on all the base, that's what they've done. See there? And the reason why they've done that is, let me get you back here a little bit further. I'm going to show you another wall here. Right there. Now see how the tile, see, even with them putting this down here, this is the piece of trim that they've put down, and that happens to be quarter round. It's just a quarter of a round piece of trim. That's why I call it quarter round. See the gap down here? Well, this is a tile floor, and the floor probably has a slight dip in here, which it does. And with this tall base, there's only so much you can do with tall base to push it down and try to fit it perfectly tight with the tiles, because what they did here is they installed the tile floor first before they installed the base. And there's a question for you. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? You know, do you install the base first and run that down and then push the tile up to it? Or do you have the tile installers install the tile first and then the base? Well, in this case, all of the tile got installed before the base. Then they ran this tall base here. They couldn't push it down far enough to keep everything nice and tight. So they used quarter round. And the quarter round is flexible to a certain extent, but it's not, you know, if you've got something too far, you can only push this down so far before it starts hitting on your tile somewhere else, or if you have a bow into it, or even like where your grout lines are. You know, this grout line here, it's going to slightly dip here. See, there's a very slight little bit of a gap right there. Well, that's how they decided to do this entire house. And when you do something like that, then you get questions about your trim around your door casings, because this is sticking out, so they have to cut this back here. They cut it back at maybe at 22.5 degrees. You could cut it back at a 45.2 or whatever. But this house, you know, 12-year-old house, and they ran it like that. Well, you know, I've seen it done both ways, and here's the thing. You see there? They've done the same thing, and they've done it throughout the entire house. Well, if you installed the tile first, what you're going to have to do, well, you don't have to cut the tile as perfectly straight all around corners and up against the walls and measure everything. You do it as tight. You know, you can have a 3/8 of an inch gap or so, knowing that your baseboard is going to cover that, and then you've got this trim on the bottom, because all of your base, I'm going to tell you right now, if you think you can get by without this quarter round trim at the bottom or some sort of small little trim, you're just kidding yourselves, because if you have your tile floor down first and you install your base, there's no way you're going to get all of your base perfectly tight with your floor. No way, no how. And you think, oh yeah, I'll shave some of my trim at the bottom, and I'll make it perfect so that when I come across something really long, a long wall like this, if I have a dip in the middle, or a dip up, a crown up, or a dip down, I'll shave all the bottom of my base. Well, you know, that takes a long time, and you might not get it all 100% perfect and all that. Okay? So that's why they use all this quarter trim down here. Now, the other way to do it is to install all the tile or all the baseboard first. You'd install the big, tall baseboard first. You wouldn't need the quarter round trim there. Then you would cut all of your tile up and leave yourself a nice little reveal around the edge. Like however thick your tile grout lines are, this happens to be, oh, I don't know, maybe a 1/4 inch or so, 3/16 to a 1/4 inch. Then you would have to cut your tile about a 1/4 inch shy of all of your baseboard to have it look all nice and pretty. Well, see, they decided they didn't want to do that because that's a lot more work for the tile guy. He's got to make his marks perfect, almost. You know, after you get this tile done, he's got to measure this exact here, exact across over here to get all of his angles right and stuff. Even on a long wall, if your long walls, no matter what, you're always going to have bump outs. Here's a bump out here. Here's another bump out. Here's a bump out. And once you get your full-length tiles done, now if your tiles are not exactly perfect with your walls for the same measurements, now you're going to have to come from here and measure over, go over to here, measure over, cut that so that your grout line is a nice 1/4 inch or however far you want it all the way along away from your base because that's going to show now, right? So the questions that come up when you install a baseboard, and here's something else. What do you do at a transition where the carpet is? Okay, see right in here, they've got the quarter round trim on top of the tile, and now they've got carpet. Well, they just ran their base, and see the base is all nice and straight at the top, isn't it? It just keeps on going, and so you would run your base right on top of your tile here, and now you've got about whatever thickness your tile is. This is probably 3/8 inch. And so before the carpet gets installed, you would run your baseboard along on your carpeted areas about 3/8 of an inch or so above your carpet, because then when they put their tack strip on, they run the tack strip a little bit away from the edge of your wall of your carpet. And so the tack strip is right in here. Then that gives them enough room. Once they cut the carpet, they can kind of tuck the carpet down, and it kind of pooches underneath the baseboard just a little bit. And that's how you do that. It makes your carpet install a nice install that way. Okay. You talk to a carpet guy if you have any questions. You can talk to your local hardware store. Talk to the carpet department and ask them, hey, you want to install some base, how should you do it? And I bet you they will say to do it that same way. Okay. Now, I think that's all I was going to show you. I just wanted you to see that throughout this entire house, they've got the baseboard that way. See, with that quarter round trim on there. And when you got painted trim, it looks okay. You know, it kind of blends in as long as everything's done the same all the way along everywhere. Now, if this base was stained or something like that, you might want to do things a little bit different. Now, what am I going to show you next time? I'm running out of things to do around here. But here's one thing that's been bugging me for a little bit. This is a trash compactor, and I installed this for my parents quite a while ago, and it's kind of pushed in a little bit. It should be flush with the outside edge here. It's really heavy, but it's pushed in. I didn't think it would ever push in like that. And sometimes when you pull this out, it wants to hit the trim. See there? It hits the trim over here. So I adjust a little bit, and then all of a sudden it comes over here and hits this trim over here. And the foot thing on it has kind of come off a little bit. It seems like it needs to be attached there, and I'm not quite sure how to do that just yet. I think I'll have to make a video for you so I can figure it out. What do you think? Yeah, because you're supposed to push your foot on there, and then it opens. You push, see, it still works. You push on there, and then that comes out like that. But what they do, what my mom does now, she just pulls on that, my mother. Okay, and you know, I'm gonna have to kind of pull this out or something, and I'm thinking that maybe I can pull this out here, lift this, and maybe attach some side screws into the side of the cabinet or something, you know, so that this is flush. If it was flush, then I wouldn't have to worry about it hitting. See how it hits right there, and it's putting a slight mark in the trim here and right there. And this cabinet here is started to loosen up because of this face frame right there. And so if I run that flush, I can get that nicely supported in there. And I'll do that next time for you. And you know, I'm not going to show you how to install one of these because this one's already here, but you know what? There used to be a cabinet right here. And if you take the exact measurement that this is, and it just happened to be that, and I'm not sure how that worked out, but I took the cabinet out, took the face frame out, redid the base board and all that. That was prior to me starting to make videos and all that. and I was able to fish that in there, push it in there, and wrap the cord through the cabinet, and then I've got it plugged in way back in there where the garbage disposal plug was. And it worked out pretty slick. I kind of like a trash compactor. Lots of people don't have trash compactors, and you might think, oh, it's too hard to install, but you know what? If I could do it, I'm sure you could do it too. So next time, my next video will be all about how to re-support this so that it's flush here, okay? Well, that's it for this time.